All right, so I have the pleasure of introducing our panel. I'm just going to give their names, and they're going to give a little bit more about their background and some of the companies that they founded. So we designed this to be more of a discussion. So you all you've had a lot of great questions throughout. So we hope you still have some more questions. I'm going to start off with a couple questions, and then I'm going to turn it over to you all because this is for you. So you see this panel here that has a lot of experience, wealth of experience. So we want to make sure that you can ask the questions that you really want to ask, so you get the most out of this discussion. So on my far right is Sam Henry.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sam Henry, co-founder of GT Web Systems. My background in tech started with partnering with this guy on Matt, who we've talked to and heard from a lot today. We co-founded a company called Get2 in 2010, went through a couple of accelerators and kind of told that story. And so I started there and I got my start in tech, and then kind of transitioned into a consulting firm, so consulting contracting. So GT Web Systems does a lot of web application development. We do some work with the Washington Post and a social commerce platform called Soulsea out in California. And I kind of transitioned and moved into some real estate on the side, so I'm also a real estate investor as well.
Okay, next is Winston Frazier.
Hi, my name is Winston. My company is Dene Prosthetics. So we really believe that 3D printing is going to be the device that pushes us forward as humans, past our mental and physical boundaries. We exist at 3D print devices to help all people look, move, and feel differently. Right, so our first device is a prosthetic cover. It goes over an amputee's existing prosthetic leg to allow them to customize their leg on our application. So I started my business. We're at a year and 8 months. I started right out of school. I graduated in 16. I've raised $85,000 so far. I quit my job 3 months ago, and I have about 10 people on my team.
Thank you. All right, next is William Mapp.
How you doing? I'm the CEO of Studio Codeworks, technology for the benefit of all mankind. My former technology company, Data Systems, was actually the first to win some working capital loan fund from TEDCO, so I've gone through that process. Sold parts of companies, been audited by the IRS, invested here and there, hired Sam's company, so we've worked together a couple of times. Made a ton of money, lost a ton of money, burned through numerous employees, and so I got lots of stories to tell, including an install in Amsterdam and a strip club that was kind of funny. So if we got questions, I can answer a bunch of them.
Awesome, thanks. And I don't know if you know this gentleman here.
Everybody, I'm Matt. We've gone through the story twice.
All right, and then our keynote speaker, Mr. Luke Cooper. Okay, so the first question that we have, if you were to launch a startup company today, what skills would you want for yourself to have, and then what skills would you want your core group of co-founders to have?
You're supposed to use the mic or you don't?
Yes.
All right. Hello? It's not on.
Oh, he's not.
Oh, no, I guess, yeah, there we go. So I would say the skills that I would want, and I would want from my co-founders, is I would want myself to be really dedicated on innovating on customer acquisition, while I had co-founders that were going to be really innovative on the product. So while they're innovative on creating the most amazing product that we could have, I would want to be solely focused on innovating primarily on customer acquisition and being different and acquiring as much of the customer base as we possibly can, as fast as we can. Because there's no better funding than revenue.
Yeah, I would probably echo that. I think growth hacking is probably one of the most critical positions in a startup company that you can hire for. A lot of people make the mistake of hiring, sales first or other, skill sets. But I think that's one of the probably most critical ones. I would also add to that and say vision is important. It seems kind of soft, but if you don't hire people that have a strong vision, personal vision for their lives, and a personal vision for what you're trying to achieve, they don't share that vision, it's going to be incredibly difficult to keep them motivated and consistently attacking when everything around you is crumbling, literally. Someone just asked me a little while ago, like, why do startups fail? And like I said, the number one reason why startups fail is because it's freaking hard. No other reason, so those skills.
So for me, with where I am, I draw a lot of boxes today. And so for me, like really just having an overarching sense of the world and where people's actual mindsets are, is that now I can, through networks and other people, I can pretty much either buy, partner, or finagle, the other aspects of my business. I can finagle that. I'll come to Mac for my customer, innovative stuff. But being able to see, how can I use the world to build my product? My next startup isn't going to be in technology, actually. And so it'll be a completely new, strange venture for me. But what I have developed the skills over time is being able to see across a breadth of different things that I'll need. And I'll have Sam to do some of my stuff, Mac to do some of my stuff, but getting that coordination to actually work is hard as hell. If you've built a product with multiple teams, it's hard to even put things together. And building a company is hard, and building, something that's new and unique in a different domain is harder. So.
Son? I think, so I'm in Accelerator right now, and we've been working with a bunch of doctors and a bunch of Conscious Venture Labs. It's we're up in Middaman. So it's Conscious Venture Labs and a bunch of other people who, Jeff Cherry and Sagamore Ventures and a bunch of other people who are investing. It's a fund of like $500,000 into 6 companies. And what they are really focusing us on is ourselves and the people around us and our compassion towards each other and towards our employees, towards our customers, right? That's first and foremost. So when I'm looking for another founder, I'm looking for someone who's going to understand me and how I operate. We talk to a lot of doctors and tell us, okay, this is what you're going to do every time, fill all these tests and stuff and get 60-page reports. And so what I learned about myself is I'm very vision-oriented. And so what they told me to do is not to focus on the details. So I need my co-founder to focus on those details so that I work my best in the vision and not trying to solve problems on paper, because I'm horrible at them.
I think in my entrepreneurial experience, I've been kind of fortunate where I've been surrounded by people that had the right skills. Like when Mac and our other co-founder and we started Giving Two, it just so happened that we had complementary skills that really worked well together. Mac was a super sales guy, the networking guy, and my other co-founder was Mike. He was the super tech guy who was like, pushing us on the heavy technical side. And then I got to kind of sit in the middle and be the product guy and try to bounce in between and help the other 2 guys out. But I think identifying those complementary skills in people that you don't already know is really difficult. I think that's what's the skill that I as a sole co-founder looking for co-founders. The main skill that I would want the most is being able to identify what somebody brings and do it really quickly. Sometimes it takes a while to kind of feel some people out and see if they're the right fit for you. But the quicker you can identify what it is that this person brings to the table, other than what they say they bring to the table, and whether or not there's a cultural fit between you, if you're going to be able to work with this person for the future, I think that's a huge skill. And sometimes I think people get a little too nice about it, and you kind of don't want to separate, you don't want to part ways from people, and so you might be a little too friendly. But at the end of the day, it's a business. I mean, if friends are friends, business is business, and hopefully you can be friends with the people you're in business with, but the business comes first. And so you want to be able to identify, okay, what is it about this person that makes them the right fit for my business team, outside of, hey, we can be friends outside. Hopefully we can be friends outside, but can we do business first? And I think that's it's really important.
Okay, thanks. So the next question somewhat related, is how did you handle equity for your co-founders, employees, and board members?
Yeah, I think there's a real standard approach to how that's done today. For anybody who's interested in learning more about this, the Bible on this is called Venture Deals by Brad Feld. It'll tell you everything you need to know, but it's super important to have a complete understanding of how equity works in a startup at the earliest stages. I can't say how many founders I talk to and mentor that come to me and say, "Oh, well, I gave my co-founder 50% of the company, and I own the other 50%." And it's all there's no vesting. It just it was a stock grant at the beginning of the starting the company, and that might sound like an innocuous thing, but that's a very deadly thing if that co-founder were to leave, and that happens all the time. A co-founder leaves, he takes 50% of that equity with him, and now what investor is going to want to invest in a company that has that kind of dynamic? So it can be very, very treacherous waters if you don't understand how all that works. And so I guess there's a lot of different things we can talk about with respect to equity, but the rule of thumb is that everybody should have a 4-year vest with a 1-year cliff. So if you are hiring employees, whether it's co-founder, whoever it is, 4-year vest with a 1-year cliff. That basically means that their stock vests over 4 years, and it doesn't start vesting until you hit the 1-year mark, and you've been with the company for 1 year. So if they leave before 1 year, they don't get anything. And after 1 year, they can, basically draw down on at least a year of their options. So you shouldn't even be giving out equity. It should be options. This is a really complicated subject, so I'll pause there if anybody has questions or other panel members want to talk about that.
Venture Deals.
Venture Deals by Brad Feld.
It'll explain everything you ever need to learn about terms when it comes to venture capital investing, right? What I would say about equity, so there's a lot of different ways you can go about it, right? You could stagger it, and somebody has more than somebody else, or you can make it equal. The one thing I've always gone with, and this is something Michael Seibel told me when I met him. This is back in 2012. He's now the CEO of Y Combinator, right? But before then, he was running his company Social Cam, and he took me out to dinner one night, and he was asking me about how we split up the equity with our team. And I told him, and he said, "That's good." He said, because your equity at the earliest stage is equal to your amount of responsibility and dedication, right? Because what happens is, if one founder has more equity than another, well, when that founder who has more equity goes to the other founder, it's like, "Hey man, how come you're not pulling your weight?" You're like, "Well, I don't have as much equity as you. I'm doing my share of the work." Well, when everybody's equal, it makes that conversation a little different. It's like, "Hey man, why you not doing your share of the work?" "Well, I'm working really hard." "Well, we're working harder. Either keep up or we can move on," right? And that was something that always stuck with me, right? So I've always felt like at the earliest stages, when you're first getting things going, to be equal. And one thing you'll learn as you run a startup, the person whose job is the most important day one is not going to be the same person that's most important year 2. It's not going to be saying it's most important year 5, right? Like when we started our startup, there was a period where building the product was the most important thing. But once the product was built, the next most important thing was getting customers and trying to find funding. But once you get past that hurdle, building your product to get to the next stage so you can get to your next set of customers becomes the most important thing, right? And so the founders that are the co-founders that are responsible for those different things, their level of activity is going to fluctuate over time. So you can't ever look at just one snapshot of time today and say, "Well, I'm doing all the work, I deserve the most." Well, then, 2 years later, when that flip-flops, it's going to be a difficult conversation again, right? So that's the way I look at equity, but there are plenty of thoughts and things around it that are the complete opposite, right? So I suggest you get yourself educated on that.
So from taking equity or giving equity in exchange for money, so my current venture, I sold 10% with another 10% option. And I would just like to say this, is that once you take on an investor, it's like a marriage. And so hopefully, before you start thinking about selling parts of your company, you've had some degree of a long-term relationship. The investment company that has invested in Studio has also mentioned my profinity for red meat and how much red meat I consume. because, I'm the CEO of this company and he has a vested interest in it actually lasting. And so I think these guys have really given you, the blocking and tackling part of it. But I would like everyone, to think about when you take on money, and I think it's a great thing to do. But before you think about that, just understand that you have to come clean. Whatever dirty accounting that you're doing from month to month, that has to be, spread out to the people that have invested money in your venture, and just keep that in mind.
So I did not give full equal shares to my partners. I actually gave them both 5%. And so I've roughly given about 20% of my company out for all the money and my partners. On the flip side, I really made sure everyone understood what I wanted out of my business and my vision. And I said, we all are going to have to work for it first. And I will be there for you when you need me to be there. So now everyone wants a much larger cut. And I'm going to give it to them because they put the work first. I made sure that they really were invested. No one has left. No one wants to leave. And with my co-founder, one of them, we've had some nasty fights about equity, about work, about, you have more, so I shouldn't have to work like that. But really, it's about you being compassionate and understanding people and their wants. And people will go up to bat for you if you show them what's out there, if you show them what's you and what's real about you and what you're going to give to them later. Everyone in my business considers each other family. My partner's kids call me uncle because he knows I will take care of his kids later.
I don't have a whole lot to add to what's been said already. I think there's some good points have been brought out. I think the vesting makes a whole lot of sense. I think you want everybody on the team to be in it for the long haul because it is a long haul. Building a company doesn't happen overnight. It happens over years. So you want people to be motivated and to be incentivized to keep hustling year after year, however long it takes for you guys to make this thing successful. And I think a lot of the points, a lot of the strategies that have already been shared help structure that correctly.
Product out or anything else, consummate it within the business. I don't think you should worry about whether you incorporate or an LLC or any of that stuff initially. Just worry about whether or not you can actually get customers consistently buying whatever it is that you're trying to build. If you solve those problems first, all the, how you incorporate and everything else, that's a quick phone call to Cooley, and they'll get you all one of the best law firms in the world that works for equity in the very earliest stages. So I think that's one way I'd look at it. And I also encourage you, and I left this out because I just didn't want to be long-winded. I want to respect you guys' time. That you should do your own homework on your investors. So when you're raising money from investors and you're thinking about that, to your point earlier, doing a little bit of work on understanding those investors and what their motivations are and making sure you're consistent on those motivations is super important. In a startup, in a fast-paced tech startup, you don't have time to build, a 2-year relationship with an investor before he invests. They get it. They understand. Angel investors, VCs, it's high frequency, high contact, fast-paced investing. They're understanding what you do, and they're making a decision. Real investors are making a decision within a week, and then their money is live. They're wiring money the following week. And so making sure that you've done enough research on those investors ahead of time is super important. We had a scenario where, and I can't share all the details, unfortunately, but this investor is, worth billions of dollars. He has a great firm out in New York City, and our interests were completely misaligned. I didn't do my research on this guy, and I learned he came through one of our existing investors, who said this guy's got all the money in the world. He's an incredible investor. He's a young guy. He's late 40s, has a lot of money, has invested a lot. You should let him into the round. And so he made up about 25% of that particular round. Our interests were completely misaligned. This guy was calling me every morning, asking me about deal flow, asking me about cash flow targets, asking me about milestones that we, had talked about projecting. Because startups, whatever your projections are, they're going to be wrong. They just accept that. And so this guy, literally calling me every morning on my cell phone. I mean, it was one of the most stressful times of my life. And I mean, threatening all kinds of stuff. And so I made the determination, probably 2 months into it, I said, I'm gonna redeem him. I mean, it had never been done before. I mean, people don't give investors their money back and say, hey, I'm good. Because startups are cash poor. We're starved, so I need every dollar that I pull in. And so he was completely alarmed. He was just like, what? Are you serious? You're gonna give me my money back? I was like, yeah, I just want you off my cap table. So I had talked to Cooley, we put together docs, and we got him off the cap table. He was completely alarmed by that. Now, the risk to me was that I reduced my burn from 9 months down to like 5. I mean, that's risky, right? Because you should always have at least 6 months of capital in the bank when you're trying to grow. And but we weathered that storm, and we got through it, and we control our own destiny now. We've got plenty of cash in the bank, great partnerships and everything else. But those are the hard decisions about fundraising that you've got to make very early in the process before you actually get into bed with people.
Okay, so I'm just going to ask one more prepared question before we open it up. So the theme throughout today, and I guess and a few folks in the panel have talked about, is that entrepreneurship is hard. So what was your biggest challenge when you were starting your business, and how did you overcome that challenge?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest challenges, I talked about my daughter being sick, cancer and all that. I mean, that was tremendously difficult. But I think that's more of a personal level of endurance and commitment to getting past those issues. One of the other challenges I faced early on and starting out was like you're building something new that was not there before. It did not exist. And you've got to convince investors that this is a good idea. We've got good traction already. We've demonstrated, we've de-risked some of at the very earliest stages, some of the problems that we see coming down the pike. The biggest challenge I faced was that when you are a black entrepreneur, when you're a black founder, and you're talking to an investment community that's predominantly white, they don't really invest the time a lot of times to understand the context in which you are coming at them. And so, if you've got a good idea, you've got to work so much harder to explain to them, why the market is where it is, and why the market's going to be receptive to you, and why some of the risks that you identify in the business can be muted with, your product. Whereas, someone they might see themselves in, like they are willing to sort of assume some of those things. And you got to work so much harder. So I think starting out very early on, it was so difficult to get that early traction with investors, to get them to understand our business. But we overcame it by, you get 1 or 2 investors that can not only invest, but they also are willing to go to bat for you and bring in other investors, and then getting them to tell the story for you. I mean, so often we talk about product development and build, measure, learn, and all those things, and we apply it only to customers. It totally applies to investors as well. I mean, when we do rounds, I don't go out and say, to all the investors, hey, we're raising money, invest. We talk to 5 or 6, and we see how what their feedback is, what questions they have that are unique for us, and then we fine tune it, and then we put our deck out to 10 or 15. And then we fine tune it, and then we put it out to 30, and then I can close in a week on whatever money that I'm raising. So you got to apply the same things, and I think very early on for us, that was one of the most difficult challenges.
I would say one of the hardest challenges for any entrepreneur in startups, it's managing your own emotions. Being a startup founder is an emotional roller coaster. Every high feels too high and every low feels too low, right? And there's always going to be a bunch of them. And for me, probably the hardest one for me was I was on my second venture. I was living in Philadelphia in a 1-bedroom loft in the middle of the hood with 3 other grown men going through an accelerator in Philadelphia. And my lead developer quit halfway through and left me a back end of code that was completely crap. So I taught myself Ruby on Rails. We finished out the product the day before demo day, but it wasn't what we wanted. It didn't work the way we planned it to. And the company didn't survive that, right? That company failed. And that's hard. They tell you, embrace failure, enjoy failure. Failure sucks. It never feels good. You learn a lot, and the faster you fail, the more you learn, but it never feels good. but being able to manage your emotions and deal with those things as they go and know that you don't stop, right? And so the thing becomes like, if you look at a lot of these successful startups or successful companies out there, for a lot of the founders, it's not their first venture. It's their second or third or fourth venture, which means they had to manage those feelings that came from failing that first or second or third time and being like, well, that sucked, but I learned so much, I can do more. The unique thing for my second venture, though, was that I knew enough that we got into the accelerator 2 months after we started the company. Like, we didn't even have product, and they were like, yeah, we want you. Why? Because I understood the game and I knew how things worked. And then I was able to raise some capital. Why? Because I'd done the company already. I had a brand and a network, and I knew how to talk to investors and go find them, right? And so the lessons from my first venture carried me to my second venture. And if I ever did a third venture, it would just be that much more easier because I've learned all those things. But I've had to get to the point where I can manage my expectations and my emotions so that when I hit those roadblocks, I don't stop. And it's real easy for people to hit those roadblocks and be like, I don't feel like doing this anymore. And that's perfectly okay, because this isn't for everybody. Like, being an entrepreneur, like, if you go on YouTube and look up entrepreneurship and look at some of the most successful people in the world and hear their talks about entrepreneurship, every single one of them is going to talk about how hard it is. Every single one is going to say, I feel like I was crazy to do this. Like, no, Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, it doesn't matter. Like, this is hard. And so you have to be able to manage your emotions through the process. That's the hardest thing.
And it doesn't get easier. So, I may as well come get on the couch. For me, I think it's more than managing your emotions. I think for me, the biggest obstacle is myself. And it's not just because I get pissed off or I have a bout of imposter syndrome like I did earlier this year. But there is a lot of bullshit that goes on with being a black technology founder. And that in the 21st century, in the second decade of the 21st century, I'm still commented on how well I speak. You know, I own a software company. I'm the CEO. I should speak pretty
Believe in
clearly.
yourself, and you gotta get those initial people on your board. Get your initial champions first, because they'll help you see the world differently. Once you do that, you can let the world see you differently too.
Real quick, though, did those no's help you get better?
Oh yeah, definitely. You know, you weren't ready yet. I wasn't ready yet. I got no from Mac twice. Right? But every time, would you say, first time I didn't hear anything. Second time I got top 10. So this third time is going to be yes. And I'm going to make sure of that. Right? But we work together, right, all the time on me getting better. About my deck looking better, about my team being better, about my product. The first product I had to the product we just printed, it doesn't look like the same company. It doesn't look like the same anything. So use those no's as a way to make your mile time better every time.
That our current investor, I met this guy years ago, and I pitched him on the spot as something like this. I was like, I'm Will Mapp, and here's my ideas, da-da-da-da-da-da. He was like, sounds like a good idea, but I don't know if it can make money. That no, though, led to a yes, because what he wound up doing was watching how I operate. Could I grow a company? Could I turn the company into something? And then the story, the legend is that, you know, hey, Will, I have some money I want to park somewhere, you know, in a technology company that does this. And I was like, all right, you know, it's like, you should look at these companies here. I know this one does this one does that. I know the guy, you should give him a call. He was like, okay, and kind of hung up. He called the next day. It was like, Will, I was actually talking about you to invest in the money. And so it's like the no's do work. It does suck. The failure sucks, right? You know, and it doesn't feel nice. But, you know, people, if you're doing this right and you have integrity, people are watching you do this. You know, like the only reason why I'm up here is because, like, I know Mac, I know Omar, I know Sam, and it was like, Will's a pretty good dude. He's done this a couple times, and he has integrity. And that's really, your body of work will actually speak for itself. So just keep trying. Sorry.
That's a good point. I wanted to kind of segue on that too. And the challenge that I wanted to mention was that I think one of our biggest challenges was something called subject matter expertise. We kind of learned our market on the fly as we went. And we didn't really know. We didn't know about. It was a gifting app. Max probably mentioned a little bit about it, but it was gifting. It was retail. It was shopping. We didn't know about these things. We didn't really intimately know our customer. We got to know these things over time, but as we were figuring out our product in the beginning, we didn't really have a mentor who had been there, done that in our industry. And I think you can move so much faster and so much more efficiently when you do that. And even when we got in our first accelerator, that was probably our first time where we really actually had like real mentors. Exactly. So we didn't really have mentors who were they were very successful guys, and they just happen to all be all guys, but they were very successful in what they did. They weren't intimately knowledgeable about what we were doing and the industry we were operating in and who our customer was. So while it was a great opportunity, I love the program, and but I would challenge anybody who wants to start a company today to find those experts that are in the field that you want to start your company in, that are the people that have been in the industry 10, 20 years, that have done it, that have started companies, that have, or even in academia, people who have researched the technology that you want to that your company is building technology in. Find those people, talk to those people, meet them face to face, tell them about what you're trying to do, and hear their objections, because I think a lot of people get caught up not wanting to tell your idea to people because you think people might steal it, but stealing ideas is really hard. Like people, especially successful people, they're busy. They got tons of other things that they think is more important. They're not going to steal your idea. They're more likely to help you achieve whatever you're trying to achieve, so they don't have to do it. They don't want to do that. They got other stuff. So I think it's really important to find those subject matter experts. Try to find them early, and use their expertise to get you further, as opposed to trying to research and doing. I mean, still do your own research, but what's the word? Append their expertise to your research that you're doing on your own to move yourself faster, forward faster.
Okay, so this is the part we're going to open up to the audience for their questions. So I saw your hand first, so we'll go here first, and then you, and then you. All right.
I think I'm too transparent. This is exciting in good times and bad. And like I have I have dedicated my life to trying to make changes through technology. That's what I do. That's why I wake up. That's why I don't get any sleep. But from a strictly monetarily point of view, it's a couple things. One, I want to be rich. Let's just go ahead and just say it. And the path, and the thing is, like, I could have gone into finance. I got a good brain for numbers, but I think that's boring. I don't know why people want me on boards, because they just want you to look at reports. Just gotta have to read my own. I don't want to read yours. But really, what makes it worthwhile is this excitement. I've been flown around the world to talk to people just like I am today because I do this. People bring us in to solve unique and pretty challenging problems, at studio. I am a bad employee. I question all kinds of authority. I tell people there's only one entity I won't mess with, and that's the IRS. It's like I renew my license on the last day. I renew my tags on the last day. I'm just not that guy. I have to blaze on my own path. And so that excitement of waking up every day, and I am going to do something new today. Even if it was the same stuff I did yesterday. Even if an employee or someone calls up with some nonsense, that's something I have to deal with. And damn it, I'm in charge of my own destiny doing this. I am in charge of my own destiny every single day. And it's on me. you know. And what I try to do is I try not to look back with any regrets. Like I don't want to wake up one day and it's like, you know what, if I did this, if I did that, if I tried a little bit harder, I just don't want to have that conversation because I know I'm capable. Like there are a lot of people left. Everyone that's in this room must be capable because you're listening to us talk about the trash with our companies and experiences, right? And so like this is what makes it worthwhile. I can meet people like Mac. I can go to 30 Rock and to the top floor of New York City and hobnob with the owners of Nordstrom and Motorola and Google. You know, I can get on the phone in the same day with a fashion designer in Italy. You know, a boring government, contract officer from the Fed, and then I can get on the phone with an entrepreneur who's really really excited that wants to do an RFID band type payment system. That's what makes this exciting. This is what makes it worthwhile. You know, like this is why I do this. I'm smiling now because like this is what gets me geeked out. I can commiserate with Mac and be like, man, this sucks. But at the same time, I would not want to be doing anything else. And so I hope that works for you.
I have to agree with a lot of that. First and foremost, I get to design what I see in my head every day, right? I get to put out there in the world something that I think is so beautiful and so true to myself, and other people agree with it or don't agree with it, doesn't matter. It's like, it's mine and mine alone, and I get to work on that. And no boss is going to let you work on that. Not any single person. No way. Yeah, but then I have to work on your stuff too, right? Right? Yeah, first and foremost, right? We got to make your revenue first, right? Got to pay your check. I don't have to do that right now. I get to work on my work for my people, for who I want to do with, who I get to work with, who I want to invest in my company. All of that is my decision. And then the second thing, too, is meeting all these great people. A lot of people who've talked today, I've met them in the beginning of me starting a business, and they helped me. Right now, I get to talk to chemical companies, and I get to talk to CEOs all over the place. I get to call them. They call me, right? I got a call from a very famous cybersecurity CEO in the area. He called me at 7 in the morning and told me to be a monster, right? I didn't pay him. Right, I get to go. I went to Motley Fool down in Virginia and get to see their culture and hear what they have to say to us about what we need to do as a business and a people. We went to Darden School of Business, talked to Ed Freeman, who's one of the smartest guys, advises Whole Foods and BP and Container Store, and he's looking at me and telling me what he thinks I should do and what he likes about me. So you have the possibility to meet anyone that you want to. Get their email, get their phone number, have dinner with them, right? Learn their secrets. That's the best thing.
I would echo that last part about the people that you meet. I think when you become an entrepreneur and you go out and take the risk of doing something new or creating something that didn't exist, you become more interesting. And interesting people are drawn to interesting people. So you just start getting in circles where you're meeting people that they may be way more successful than you, but it inspires you to go be way more successful. And so you may start your entrepreneurial journey thinking that you want to reach, level 1, and that's all you need for your life, and then you'd be completely happy. But then you go out and meet people that are level 5 and level 10, and then it goes, wait, why should I stop there? If they can do it, I can do it. And so I think the camaraderie of meeting other entrepreneurs and just kind of challenging yourself to move up the ranks, I think is kind of infectious. And then another thing I would say, I was listening to everybody else and I kind of lost my thought. So come back to it. There was another point I wanted to make.
So entrepreneurship is hard, and I wouldn't necessarily say it's fun, but I'd say it's rewarding, right? So yes, everybody up here went to entrepreneurship because we wanted to make a lot of money. That's one of the starting points, right? But also, I know for me, I wanted to make a change somehow. Like the idea that you can create a very successful company means you're going to employ a lot of people. Well, you get to have a hand in who you employ. You get to have a hand in who you train. You get to have a hand in what that means to a community at large. And also, as you build, as an entrepreneur, like Sam said, interesting people are attracted to interesting people. So once people find you interesting, your voice starts to carry weight, and people start to listen to you. To all these crazy ideas you have in your head about why the system is broken or how things should be done differently, people start to pay attention to that, and it puts you in a position where you can start to affect change in a way that you probably never could before. That's been one of the most powerful things about my journey is I'm in a position where I can start to affect change. You know, just last week, I was at the Aspen Institute in DC giving a talk on access to capital, and I was challenging people about how can we change the way that venture capital looks today. Like, they're a research organization that puts out these white papers about, you know, the world as a whole, and part of one of the things they're attacking now is access to capital. I'm like, all right, let's put a think tank together to talk about how can we change up the model to venture capital. Are there additional models we could use? And people have been using the same model for so long. Are there other models? Well, now they're going to try and put that together. So they're going to get a bunch of people who are influential in that space in a room and say, what can we do different? And then put that out to the world. Now, I could have just been somebody at home who had all these ideas and, you know, I wrote my Medium post, and whether or not anybody ever saw it, you know, who cares? But now, as I gain influence and people find me interesting because I have been an entrepreneur or because I invest in startups now, I have the ability to affect change in a much greater capacity than ever before. And so that's where the rewarding part comes, right? Like, all that hard stuff, like, yes, you're going to sacrifice a lot along the way. But hopefully as you sacrifice those things, you're gaining a lot too. And, you know, to the point about the people, like, you know, I've met Eric Ries, the author of Lean Startup, one of Luke's investors. I've met Ben Horowitz. I've met Mitch Kapoor. I've pet his dog before. You know, I've hung out with Tristan Walker from Bevel. You know, I've been interviewed by folks at VentureBeat. They just invited me to their office to come talk. Like, these are really dope experiences that happen. I was on the phone 2 days ago with the former head of educational technology in the Obama administration, who happened to also be an entrepreneur I knew back when she started her company in 2012. You know, she then went on to be in the Obama administration. Now she's looking for her next thing, right? Like, these are all kind of people that I'm connected to. Like, if I had just been a government contractor, I'd have never been exposed to those kind of people in that world, right? And it puts you in a position where you start to see the enormity of the universe, right? Like, the opportunities that are presented in front of everybody up here on this panel are enormous. And, like, the idea of if something ever happened and you wanted to transition to something new, it's not going to be something you find on monster.com, right? It's going to be one of these amazing people that we met that are going to tap us on the shoulder and like, hey, there's this really cool opportunity, you know, you should look into that. Like, you don't get exposed to those things outside of the way we're going.
We talked a lot about people, and there's two things there. I have a developer that I employ, lives in East Baltimore, Route 40. And last year, he's a kid. Like, last year, he said this. It was like, this is the first year I could take my mom out for Mother's Day and treat her for, like, a really nice Mother's Day. And I was like, for real touched. I mean, like, I was, but, like, that is the change that you can enact on people. And our investor says, like, you want to change and impact your community, get rich first. You can philanthropize, you can do the next thing, get rich first. You want to change your community, you want to help your community out. And then the other thing is, this guy was going to make a play in the whole Verizon thing, trying to get, and so we were talking about this, and I was like, well, you know, I'm no Marissa Mayer. It's like, I don't run a $1 billion company trying to sell it for another billion. He's like, you are smarter than Marissa Mayer. I was like, how's that? I ain't go to Stanford or Harvard or wherever the hell she went. It was like, your company ain't falling to the ground. And so even though like we've been name dropping companies and people that we've met, some of these guys did get lucky, and like they're fascinating people, but I'm just like, I think I could take this guy one-on-one if we were going to do this for real, Python dueling laptops, And so like, I just say that because like we are all smart, we are all bright, like get past the head trash, but I'm gonna pass the mic now.
Yeah, I'll be quick. I think it, like everyone said, it's hard, but there's a lot of reward in it. I mean, there's no better journey than finding your own company and building something great. And I would just say that the two biggest rewards for me are, one, like problem solving, like solving a problem. What we created, like it did not exist in the market before we were doing it, and being able to pick up the phone and talk to the CIO of Coke and hear him talk about how he loves our product so much because it supports all their drivers on the road with their devices, and when they break, they don't have to worry about any sort of downtime. The CIO of T. Rowe Price, one of our other customers, that talks about 300% gains and overall efficiency as a result of using fixed now, as opposed to going to the Apple Store and using third parties like they did, a year and a half ago. I mean, those are just incredible, traction points that make it all worthwhile. So I think the rewards are incredible if you can, stick it out and really invest the time. And I would say also help, being able to help people. It's completely asymmetrical, the value of money to helping people. Everyone talks about getting rich. My goal is not necessarily to get rich. I think the wealth is sort of a byproduct of solving a problem effectively. And the better you do that, the more wealth it will create for you. But I think the real byproduct of all that is being able to help people. I sit on the board of TEDCO, and the governor asked me to join that board, probably 3 years ago now. Part of it is a result of having successfully run, technology companies in the past. And, one of the first things I noticed when I got there, and Matt can speak to this, was that there were black people at TEDCO. Like, we're making investments and we don't have any black people that work at TEDCO. This doesn't make any sense. So we went on an initiative, we talked to people, and I was like, listen, we got to change our process. At the same time, Mac was looking for something. I said, Mac, let's work on this. Let's work on this together. And so we sat and we worked on, what he was going to say in the interview, how we're going to go about this. And look, Mac's working at TEDCO now. Like, that's the impact of it. The money will come, and it will come. And if you focus on personal gain in a startup for yourself, you probably will fail. I mean, you really got to be so dead set focused on the problem that you're trying to solve, because all the great rewards will come out of that. So sorry for belaboring the point.
All right, thanks. All right, so you had a question?
So, I think I'll answer this in two parts, right? The first, I made sure that everyone aligned with my vision, right? When I was looking for co-founders and people to work at my company, the first question I asked was, would you move to Dubai, right? If the company had to move across the world, would you do it for the vision of the company? And both my co-founders said yes. Luckily enough, we're going to Dubai in January, right? But it's all, they have to see the vision happen, right? And they have to be a part of it to stick there. So if we're going to work together, we got to be aligned. So that's first and foremost. Everyone who works in my company is very forward-thinking, is very technology-driven, they want to see our customers have the best in technology, and they want to work on that, right? What you give to them is you have to give them autonomy. The worst possible times of autonomy. The worst things I've ever done in my business is try and control people too much. That's the biggest fights I've ever had with co-founders or other people, is not letting them be the smart people that they are, right? Because if they're working for you and you hire well, then they're really smart. They're geniuses. I work with a bunch of geniuses. And if you try and control them, it's just not going to go well, right? They need space to breathe. They need space to be creative. They need space to actually get their job done. Not have you've had a boss that's just down your neck all the time, right? How does that feel? You hate that. I hated that. I used to work in Amazon. I hated working at Amazon because someone was always behind me looking at my metrics, seeing how I was doing. You didn't make your rate tonight. What are we going to do to help that, right? Instead of letting me be free, right? Yeah, exactly, right? Uh-huh. And you do you like that? Do you like being talked to like that? It's about their vision, right? How can you input? We have a lot of projects that are happening now in the company that were driven from someone else before they even came to the company. Creative Creatures is something that one of my partners was working on for a long time. He wanted to do interviews of many people and their ideas and how they were creative in their life and what that looked like as videos, as a blog, right? That's now our front thing that we're going to take to just try and be a part of the community. So it's taking their ideas they already had and allowing that to thrive in their business is the biggest thing that I offer people in my company. It's not incentives. I haven't paid much. I can't. We're a startup, right? So for them, it's not about the money. I have there's multiple people in my company who my project manager makes $250,000 a year. There are other people who make $50,000 to $100,000 a year. They all make more than I do, and they're here because they see the vision and they want to work on that. Yeah. So everyone, I'll quit full. Everyone's about to now. We're getting up to do our. People are going to start quitting soon and really ramp things up. Yep.
So I'll take the part about the interns, right? So one of the coolest experiences I've ever had running a startup was when I was in Philadelphia. At Penn State, they have this hackathon called Penn Apps, right? It's one of the largest on the East Coast. And while we were there, me and my team were there just to be mentors and help out. And really what we were doing, we were scoping out talent, right? And so we ran across this one kid named Josh. And he was a designer. And he was working with his team, and he's like, well, nobody on the team knew how to code anything, so I'm going to be the coder for the team. I'm like, all right, well, that's cool. You're going to learn to code in the night. Good luck. And so we sat down with him, showed him a few things. Lo and behold, he picked it up, started going. By the end of the weekend, his team had put something together. And we met a few other really talented young individuals like Josh while we were there. And so when we were looking for interns, we reached out to him like, hey, would you like to be an intern? And we're like, I'm not going to pay you, but there's a new iPhone coming out. We'll buy you the new iPhone. He was like, all right, cool. I love that. But the thing was, he was in school to learn to be a designer, right? And so what I told him was like, all right, I'm going to let you completely design a whole new front end for our app. I want you to design the whole thing. This is your project. He looked at this, he's like, you really just going to let me design this? I'm like, yeah, this is for you. I want you to design it. Your creativity, your insight, we'll give you input along the way, but this is your project. That kid worked on that so hard and so much that he started not wanting to go to class. He would be in our offices. I'm like, don't you have class? He's like, yeah, but I want to. I'm like, no, go to class. Go to class, please. Go to class. Don't do this. But he felt so invested and cared so much because we gave him the empowerment that he had ownership of it. that he came up with an amazing product. It was a beautiful design that we would have paid, thousands of dollars for from somebody else. And he was just excited that somebody would empower him to take control and be able to do that. And we used that same tactic with our other developers, right? So we had a guy who was a grad student who just got his law degree. He's like, I want to transition to be a developer. I'm like, all right, that's interesting. You got a law degree, but all right, whatever. So this is what our product does. If there was one key feature that you would want to build, what would it be? And he told us what feature he would want to add. We're like, all right, so this is the feature you're going to work on for us, and on the side, this is the feature you get to work on for you. And he got them both done. Why? Because he was just so excited because he got to have ownership. And giving your team and your employees some sort of ownership of what they're doing helps them feel invested because they feel connected to the product.
Okay, so we're going to take 2 more questions. I saw your hand and then your hand. So your question?
Painting. So one, try and learn as much as you can about that subject, right? I read about 3D printing. I learned CAD. I learned SolidWorks. I did as much as I possibly could on my own to get us moving forward. And then 2, you partner with people who really know about that. One of the people in my company now, Brian, is getting his master's at Hopkins. He lives the experience of being an amputee. He's worn the devices. He's literally felt their pain and gauged the seconds of, okay, I picked up this cube with my hand and it took 9 seconds. I picked it up with a prosthetic arm and it took me 45, right? So getting all those types of people who really live in the place that you don't is what's going to make you successful. And then if you can't do that, which you should be able to, go to another company, right? I'm not a chemist, but I'm using another person's company to do that work, right? My mentor is a biochemist. So they do all the hard work for me, and I stay in my vision and tell them the vision, and they do the work. And then it gets done.
So my next venture is going to be in apparel. Yeah. And I know nothing of apparel. Well, I knew nothing of apparel a year ago. But now I know a whole lot. And so, investigating how things are done, fabrics, moisture wicking, allergies, that sort of thing, compounds that are in fabrics, silver that are in some fabrics, and how they react on the skin. A lot of research. But in the 21st century, we live in the best time ever in history. I know everyone said that. But you can buy a lot today for cheap. I'm not going to make anything here in the United States that doesn't make any sense. But there are a bunch of people that aren't in sweatshops in other countries that can make things for cheap. And so I think, idea sex. I'm a technologist. I draw big boxes and lines as a CEO. I'm going to take those skills and talents, and then the people who know about fabrics, garments, apparel, retail, and how retailers are buying things for $1 and selling it for $150. There are people I can call and contact about those items. And so, internet communications, a phone call, expertise, so you can buy it. It's really, what can you do up here, and are you willing to actually make that step? And are you willing to have a sucky day? I think that's it, really. Sheriff had her presentation was down.
I would say if you don't have the background, yes, you want to do the research yourself, but you want to find those people to complement your skills, right? So how do you go about finding them? Well, you want to go to where they are, right? You want to go to those meetups. You want to go to those events. You want to find the blogs that they're at and what they're talking about and engage. We live in an amazing time. Like Will said, it's amazing to find somebody who writes a blog about mechanical engineering, who might be a student somewhere, and then to tweet them like, hey, I would love to have a conversation with you about your most recent blog. You'd be surprised how many people will reach back out to you and be like, sure, let's talk. I met the head of business development and innovation at Capital One that way. He had a blog about how startups could work with big companies. I was like, hey, I read your blog and I wanted to know if maybe I could have a conversation with you. He set up a call with me the next week just because I tweeted him, right? So there's always ways to find people. And also, being comfortable with no. Some of the people you're going to reach out to aren't going to reach back out. Some are going to say no. Some people are going to leave me alone. But if you reach out to enough people, somebody's going to be like, yeah, sure, let's have a talk. And if what you're doing is really innovative or interesting, or you can get them interested, because the first sale you're going to make is to the people you want to work with. If you can sell them, well, that gets you moving, right? So it's about trying to get yourself as part of that community while learning and starting to engage with those folks. And being open to being in places that you're not used to going. Being open to being in uncomfortable spaces, right? If you want to get into mechanical stuff, you might want to check out the Foundry down the City Garage, or you might want to go to OpenWorks, where they have, think about it's a YMCA model for fabrication. Like they have all this mechanical engineering stuff there. You can do 3D printing, you can do fabrication, you can do apparel. They have laser cutters and mortar cutters and all kinds of stuff, right? You pretty much build just about anything you want there. You can just rent the machines. It's open to the community. So, start there, Put up a, help wanted poster there. People who are mechanical engineers go in and out every day. They see your help wanted poster. Somebody might email you back, call you. Try those things. Being open to being in those communities and being where those folks are. That's really.
Okay. All right, so our last question.
Yeah, that's probably exactly where I was about a year ago, and it's a good problem. And so what you're describing is not really a problem at all. It's the natural evolution that should happen as you build a successful business. Because the reality, Erica, is that you're not scalable. Like you can't scale yourself. You can't go design 20 more people like you that do exactly what you do, and so you want to basically work yourself out of a job. I mean, you effectively should be working on your business and not in your business. And so many entrepreneurs, they just lose sight of that. You get so deep into the product development cycles, all the little stuff that's happening, on the service desk or whatever. Like those are things that you should not necessarily care about as you get a little bit bigger, and as you grow, you find what replaces those things, that connective tissue that you're talking about, are your values, all your processes, all of the back end processes that and operational procedures that make sure everyone's aligned and driving toward the same goals. And so as you get bigger, you start to manage the business by metrics and by broad-based quarterly and annual goals, and that's a good natural evolution for a startup. So I don't see that as a problem at all. I see that as naturally what should occur.
And so I completely agree with Luke, right? Like you're supposed to transition to that point. But I also think at some point you always want to have a connection to your base, right? And so how many people here have seen the show Undercover Boss, right? When you see those bosses go through that process of being in the shoes of their employees for a day and interacting with their customers for a day, they learn so much more than they see in those spreadsheets that they see every day, right? And so what I tell some startups as they start to grow is bake that into your process. You know, every so often, like I talked earlier about validating your idea and interacting with your customers, doing customer interviews, bake into your process that like once a quarter, you're going to pick out 5 of your most highly engaged customers, 5 customers that are kind of engaged, and 5 customers to stop using your product and interview them and see what you learn. Do that every quarter. Like even as your company grows and as you get bigger, you want to always have some kind of understanding of what's going on. But as you grow, you get locked into your processes. Like as you grow, especially when you go from being a startup to a small business to a medium-sized business, the idea of having processes that run your business become really important, right? Because they need to be repeatable, especially as you have turnover and people come in and people go. A lot of things are going to be driven by process. So you want to have that stuff start to get baked into your process, right? So that you never lose sight of it. Because it's really easy to lose sight of things. Like those small details become real easy to lose sight of in the day-to-day minutia of growing a business, right? But when you have it baked into your process, you always have to go back to, right?
So mankind is in our tagline, and for everyone, people like working with Will, and Will is really not scalable, as Luke said. But everyone who has to face a customer, I really do try to make sure they have the temperament to actually kind of be like Will. You know, like I'm very affable, I make jokes, I talk trash, and I do it in a way that people kind of like most of the time. Naturally, I try to seek those people out, you know, as part of our team. Technology is hard, you know, I have some people, Sam's worked with them that, you shouldn't put them in front of a customer, you know. But for people that have to work with an account executive or account manager, it's like, you know, can you get along with people? Do you like people? Do you like mankind? It's like, well, no, I don't. Well, I don't know if it'll be a fit, you know. So I think as you grow, you should seek out people like you. You know, when you're talking to them, it's like, do you have the temperament to go out here, go to your touch points, you know, drink chamomile tea with your customers, that sort of thing? I've done that before. And I think that's really it.
So over the time, like from the beginning to the end, I think that's probably one of the worst qualities I've ever had in the startup. I was so invested in my customers at first, and we got to building things up, and I'm worried about money, and I'm worried about this investor and this new investment, and the office and the checks and blah, blah, blah. So I started to stop talking to my customers so much. When we went down to Darden, Ed has this idea about you not focusing on your shareholders and you really focusing on your stakeholders. And since I've done that kind of tune-up, the amount of people I'm talking to are potential customers and beta testers is way, way, way higher and more important than it's ever been. I think that for me, I'm going to make sure that just stays a part of my process. Thursday, I just walked into a clinic, right? No call, no nothing, just walked in there. I'm going to do that every week, at least once to 3 times a week, just so it just stays important. That's my customer. They come first. They always come first. And even if you get there's other stuff I have to do. Make sure you have that once a month, once a week, every day, call, walk in, whatever, that you come back, connect with them, and see how they're doing.
I think in that transition stage between small company to large company, there's opportunities to look for more scalable ways to get that interaction. Like maybe it's not a sit down face to face with one-on-one customer, but maybe it's an event where you do maybe a customer appreciation night or something, or some kind of event where your customer base is already going to be at, and maybe you sponsor the event, you show up so that you can get some interacting time, or your team can get some interacting time with the people that are a part of your customer base. Or maybe it's leveraging online tools, maybe it's a webinar, maybe it's a kind of blog that maybe every week you post something that maybe it takes 5-10 minutes of your time, but can reach an infinite amount of your customers by just being put in the right places. So I think there's time for that. And I think one of the examples, probably not the best example, but whenever there's like a huge scandal, like we've had a whole lot of these hacks going on where like Experian Equifax lost all this, they lose all this customer data. when something big like that happens, then you see the CEO on TV saying, "Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, this, we've got these high ideals for our company, and this is not the best representation of ourselves, and all this stuff." But don't wait till the crisis to have some kind of interaction where you put out the message that you want out there by your company. If you want that positive message out there, you can put it out there in the good times. You can talk about the good developments. If you got a new product that's coming out, you can, as the CEO, you can announce that. I mean, you can have people on your team to do these announcements and do your PR or whatever. But if you participate in that, that's one way that people still can see that I feel like I still have that contact with that person, even though I'm not face to face with them. I still know who they are as a person behind this corporate name. So I think there's ideas like that you can use to keep connection.
One more? Okay. We'll take one more question. Yeah, yep, you.
Right, right. I think the one of the ancillary challenges associated with that question is that it sets up these false expectations for investors too, because investors, they come at you and they want you to be the next Uber. They want you to be the next big thing. They don't even want to invest in a business that's only going to do $4 or $5 million in a few years. They want the business that's going to be 200 million. And so what happens is you wind up designing all your business planning and all your pitch decks and everything else around that kind of presentation, and it's completely unsustainable. You're more than likely not going to get there to any level of achievement, and so it sets up these false expectations. So your question is a good one, because that is definitely a big problem. I think part of the way to get around some of that is to really revert back to the build, measure, learn methodology. What's the minimum thing that I can build that will prove that there's a market, prove that there's an active customer base that has interest in what I want to do and what I want to achieve, and I can get some demonstrable traction around that thing. And then once you have that traction, it's a lot easier to raise money. It's a lot easier to sell that story. Baltimore is a unique environment to some extent, because the investor base here does not have sort of the same. They just have a different temperament than other geographies. And I think when you focus on sort of getting that initial traction yourself first, you can raise money outside of Baltimore. And a lot of times doing that first and then coming back to Baltimore, you'll have a lot more success. But I think you're 100% right in so much as that this 10% that they invest in is not sustainable.
Spoken like somebody who's gone outside and come back. So this is an interesting question. Being somebody who's a funder and who's investing in less than 2% of the companies that apply to my fund, right? I think you're right. I think long term it's not sustainable, but we're talking about investing from the standpoint of the investors, right? The investors are looking for a certain thing. People who have a bunch of money are looking to diversify that money. That's why they do this investing. And they're looking for a certain kind of a return. But I think there are other models that could exist that could be successful. They probably wouldn't be as successful because you wouldn't get the Uber or the Airbnb, but you could have steady returns that may be even higher than the S&P, which is just the typical markets, right? And so the question is, how do you, and to tackle that, you have to tackle those investors where they are and show them that there are these other models for them to get steady streams of income that give them a higher return than what they normally would see, and probably a better rate of return than what they would see doing this 10% type of investing, right? And I think it's up to the folks, like the people in this panel and the people in this room, as we build our companies and become successful and become investors ourselves, to start leveraging or creating those models and putting them out to the community to say, hey, look at what we do. A great example of it is a company called RevUp. So RevUp used to be Beta Springs, and Beta Springs was one of the original accelerators out there. They invested in all these companies. They've had some success, but now they've changed their model and they're called RevUp, where basically they take companies that are already making money and they give them access to their team of what they call growth builders. So basically, they take a little bit of equity in their company and give them their consultants to help them build out their company and grow. And the way they make money back is on royalties. So they make money back based on the higher rate of profit they make every quarter. Right? That's a different model. And they do invest some capital into those companies as well. Well, is there a way to do a similar model for people who have ideas? Like Baltimore is a real unique place. When we look at Baltimore, just recently we heard that the Target in Mondawmin Mall is shutting down, right? So all those people in that community, where are they going to go to get to go shop? Well, this is a great opportunity for a lot of small business owners to set up shops, for people to put in a soap and body store, or people to put in a clothing store, a consignment shop, all these different shops to fulfill that need. Grocery stores, right? There's potential for those stores to go into into those neighborhoods. Well, where do we have? How can we build an investing model that makes sense to investors? Because it's still got to make sense and tie back to dollars, where you can take somebody who says, "Hey, I have this vision. I'm willing to work really hard. I need these things to get started, but this will not only make an impact in the community, but we know from the metrics that when you put something like this in a community like the one we're in, that this is the kind of revenue you'll get from the standard amount of foot traffic." Like there are ways to use the big data models out there to put the statistics together to warrant a model like that. But people have to have an open mind to creating those. And that's one thing that we're trying to do at TEDCO with our pre-seed model. Nobody's doing that. And if we can prove it works, there are other people who may want to do that. There are other states that have reached out to me who are like, hey, how do we do something like this in Detroit? How do we do something like this in New York? Well, New York doesn't need the money, but whatever. How do we do this in Atlanta, right?
I would like to add one other thing too. Like if you're talking to investors who are using Uber and references and stuff like that, they need to understand the evolution of Uber, Airbnb, and these other companies. Uber had in the first year of operation 3,200 rides in the first year of operation. Oh, wow. I mean, so we talk about what success looks like. In the early stages, it just looks like normal traction. Airbnb, they took 4 years before they raised a single dollar. They couldn't even get traction. They were flying back and forth to New York to take pictures of apartments themselves. And so that's the real story of how to successfully build a startup. And if you're talking to investors who don't get that or don't see it that way, they're probably the wrong kind of investors. And unfortunately, in Baltimore, we have a lot of bad investors in the
Hey now.
Yeah. No, Netflix is. I'm going to show you how I'm going to threaten my own self-preservation. I'm going to be controversial and contradictory at the same time. I think you're right. I think we're due for a correction. I'm a big part of my life change is philosophical. I read a lot of philosophy, and I'm trying to get this dinner with Nassim Nicholas because he only has dinner with interesting people. And so, the thing is, the venture model is somewhat jacked up. Let's call it what it is. It's like you're betting on these unicorns, and the rest of those companies are gonna go fall in the wasteland, and And so I think there's a couple things that we need to take a look at, because technology is actually, disrupting economies all around the world, and that there are smart people that are questioning, do we measure success by, GDP? And that really is one way of looking at it. And the crazy cryptocurrency guys, that their idea with virtual currency is that it kind of levels some of these economic playing fields, and that will further drive, cost of labor down, I think, long term. And so, with that being said, at Studio, it's like we take that tagline seriously. Like, we're working on AI that's going to put somebody out of a job right now, in healthcare space. But at the same time, how can we, leverage technology to actually, help people? Like, if we can make these things cheaper and cheaper as labor costs go down cheaper and cheaper, does that mean access goes up? We don't know yet. But I'm not answering your question. I'm agreeing with you. I'm putting my ideas out there. We don't know what we don't know. But I think for us, we're going to keep on doing what we do. We are not an Uber. We are not an Airbnb, but we're profitable. And we turn down projects if they don't serve in our mission. I had a customer that wanted us to do a facial recognition system to quote unquote detect people we may be interested in for the cops. And I was like, I know some people that live in the hood. What if I'm on a corner? I'm now a person of interest because I hung out with my cousin, And so like I think as a society, we need to start changing our mode of thinking of why we consume. I know it's like real socialist stuff out there. I'm a CEO. like really why we consume, because it really is going to crash at some point. Like, where will the next unicorn pop up if our cost of labor goes down significantly, since we're an automation territory? Like Studio is about to legitimately force 1,000 or so people out of work because of machine learning and AI. Like where in the economy will that recover? And I'm a person who tell people, like, my job didn't exist when I was in 5th grade. And so I'm hoping that we will invent the next thing. But I'm pretty sure that our measure of success will change in the distant future. I'm sorry I didn't answer your question, but I had to get that out there.
So I'm not an investor. I personally invested into a few stocks, but I'll tell you kind of what I've learned about dealing with so many investors and getting lots of no's and the yeses. And I think what I've learned too, again, Tom Vogel, right, from Motley Fool, he kind of explained to us what investors think about when they're throwing so much money around to select few amount of companies, is they are actually gambling, right? They are looking for that Uber to erase all the losses that they got for their quarters, right? So they're being very selective, and it's not about your company, it's not about the mission, it's about their return on investment, right? That's what a lot of people care about. And I think some of the deals that have almost come to my company and fell flat because of return on investment, and the money was all they cared about, and we had a split. All the investors I've ever had who actually invested did not care about their return so much as what the money was doing for the community, technology, our customers. I'll tell you a story too. Earlier, and Mac knows this, earlier my company had a kind of decision to fork and become another company. We're working on some technology and 3D printing, and a lot of investors that I talked to were like, I'm all about this, I want to invest in this. And it really confused my head, because I'm like, okay, they want to invest in my product, they just want to invest in what we're making technology-wise, maybe I should switch to that, right? And so I started talking, kind of got lost in that. And my current investor got really pissed at me. And we had a really bad summer with each other, and things are a lot better now. And she said to me the other day, I was super mad at you because you were really focusing on making money, and you were not focused on the social economic value that was going to happen. You weren't focused on your vision, You weren't focused on what you were actually, why you actually started this company was not there in that decision to move on to this next thing. It was not about that. It was about investment. It was about profit. So you're not going to find too many investors who think like that, but they're out there. And those are the ones who give capital to people who are really doing something. It's just I don't personally think it's going to happen anytime soon. I think investors really like to gamble, not all of them, but a lot of them like to gamble, and it's about the profits. I've met a lot of sharks out there. Yeah.
So this is, I'm actually, if you're okay with me telling, I'm going to give people why he got to know the second time, right? And it was tied to money, but it wasn't just tied to money, it was tied to confusion, right? He came in, and what I know him to do is create these covers that you put on prosthetics. But he also had in his application that they made these custom 3D printers that were cheaper and better than what was on the market. Well, there's a much smaller market for prosthetic covers than there are for cheaper, better 3D printers. That's a much larger market. So if you're going to make a bet, you want to make a bet on the product that's in the larger market. And so we had the conversation with him. So what kind of company do you want to be? Are you going to do the prosthetic covers in 3D printing? Or are you going to create this unique 3D printer? And we're looking at him like, please say 3D printer, please say 3D printer. Because it's the larger markets where there's more money. And that's how investors are going to think, right? But if he had came to us and told us, like, the 3D printer thing is something we do on the side because we know we can generate revenue, but what we are is this prosthetic cover company, we'd have probably said yes. And if he had came to us and definitively said, we're going to be the 3D printer company, we'd have probably said yes. Well, the reason why he got to know wasn't just because of the money, it's because the lack of direction. As the CEO and the person who drives the vision, we have to know that you're going to be solely focused on one path. The fact that he was split on these two paths, you can't invest in that. We got to know where you're going to be. And that's where the issue came. Now that he's come to his decision on that, we'll see what happens in the next round.
I had that experience once of presenting to an investor with a split direction, and yeah, I've had that failure point. I've learned from it, and I would not do that again. But the point I wanted to make about the 10% is I think instead of trying to change the way investors invest to get them to pick more than just the 10%, I think you ignore the people who are just going to go after 10% and go after the funds that are in the capital sources that are looking elsewhere. Because I think in every market there are the people that are going to follow the established pattern and the people who are the outsiders who are looking for alternative ways to beat the market or beat whatever everybody else in the market is doing. I think you just go and look for those outsiders, look for those other sources. Like Luke mentioned, maybe you look outside of your geography. If the people in your geography all kind of invest the same way, look elsewhere, go elsewhere and source of capital elsewhere. I think there's tons of capital in this world, and I think just to look at the established names that are in capital and think that that's the way you got to go in order to make it, I think that's being short-sighted. I think there's so much other sources out here, and then you got people like Matt who are creating new sources, new opportunities to. So yeah, plenty. Go ahead.
I just want to add to that. A majority of investors are not for you. They are not aligned with your vision. They have their own vision. You have to get an investor who believes in the exact same thing as you, right? Wants to wear the same shoe as you, wants to walk just like you in the same direction into the abyss of this idea, right? If you don't have that, when trouble comes, they're not going to want to help you. They're going to think about their money if you even get to that point, right? So they're out there. They're investors who are only interested in social values, only interested in nonprofits, only interested in your specific idea. Go find that person, go partner with them, and they'll help you 10,000 times more than a person who's not aligned. Because my investor, when I was hungry, she fed me, right? She she contacted just recently the head of HP, because I've been harping on trying to use HP's 3D printer, right? She did those steps. She'll find anyone. She'll talk to anyone. She'll do anything on the ends of the earth because she wants to see my vision happen. She does not care about her return on investment.
Is that appropriately responsive to your question?
Oh, I really appreciate all of your answers. I was more curious about collectively how can we. Some of you did the more. It's not personally how can we talk to investors, but how can we collectively make sure that more of these ideas are happening? Because all the research shows that valedictorians don't do any better later in life than anybody else. So, are we missing those A and B plus students in terms of, like you said, the models of investing? So if we say, how do we partner and make sure that more of the people who apply to TETCO, even if they don't get funding, if they get something where they get partnered with Hopkins, or they get like maybe it's a tier model, or maybe how do we make sure that more events that are more ideas that are happening? How do we make sure that pitch competitions, unless from everyone that I've asked, if you pitch at a school, at a organization, at an event, they just throw out all the people that didn't win or didn't get accepted. Like it just goes in the bin. So it's like when cars, with technology advancing, like you said, and losing 1,000 jobs as technology advances, when we're having driverless cars and when a robot can flip my burger, to me that's intellectual capital that you're throwing out in the trash, and we can't afford to do that. You would never throw away 80% of your food and only eat 10%. So how can we legitimately say, when the Targets in Baltimore are closing, that all of these ideas, I understand we can only maybe fund 10 of them, but there's got to be more where we're helping people's ideas in the community help reach and connect the people that they're trying to help. That's just my idea. I think like we said, the sustainability of it, like if we're really talking sustainability,
so maybe there's an app that can be created that takes people who have ideas and minus the venture capitalists, just connects them with the people who have the problem. So it pays for itself, and revenue pays for itself. You have a problem, you have a potential idea, and it just connects itself. So kind of like an Airbnb before business creators and people with problems.
Yeah, I mean, I think the funding aspect of it is just one. Funding is just one aspect of the overall success of an idea. I agree with you that we just discard ideas that are not successful in these pitch competitions or whatever else there is out there. But the reality is, you need a lot more than just money to make an idea successful. I mean, a lot of good ideas. I mean, I don't hear bad ideas, quite frankly. I hear a lot of good ideas. But money is not the rate limiter. It's just one aspect that limits you maybe at a point in time. If it's a really good idea, it will find a way into the market. I strongly believe that. I think that efficient markets work efficiently to find the best ideas. In terms of ideas that are specific to minority community, which is something I care about to a large extent, I think the best way for us to make sure that we're not losing, because you're right, the next green idea, environmental idea, whatever it is 100% in Pimp Lucy or in Waverly somewhere, and it's trapped. It's trapped behind a single mother who is trying to do the best for her kids and try to protect them from the streets. And that kid has no avenue to success to get his idea from where it is on the street to somewhere else in mainstream America. You're 100% right that is out there today. The best possible way that I can think of to do that, and it's not a scalable, institutionalized way to do it, is for me to be successful. I've sold a company for $60 million. I'm on the board of TETCO. I'm going to sell another company. I have a successful company now. And investors are going to see that, and they're going to start saying, well, why am I only allocating less than 2% of all venture capital to minority companies, to companies that have black founders? I need to be putting more money behind them. And so I think that's the way that we do it. Unfortunately, there's not a strong answer otherwise.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'll let the panelists just give any final thoughts. So I'll start with Sam.
And final thoughts, I would just hopefully inspire people to keep pushing. We talked about the rewards, we talked about the why, we talked about what it takes to get from point A to point B. Just keep pushing, keep pushing. It's not an easy road. don't expect it to be, but I think, everything that you've kind of heard from this panel and for the other speakers today is hopefully let you know that, just by being in this room, you're on the right path, and just keep at it.
So I second that. Don't ever quit. But you all have something here that you didn't have yesterday, and it's a large group of people who are very focused on the same thing. Everyone in this room wants in advance a singular idea, or you want to help someone else in this room, or you want to network, or you want to build something, you want to manufacture something, you want to code something. Rely on everyone in this room to move all of us forward as a community. We're now a community. So don't ever forget that. Always make sure that's what I try and do, is I try and help as many people as possibly can by adding value just with my network. And that has advanced my life so much forward, because I've talked to most of these guys since the beginning. And they give me their network, they help me out, do the same thing for each other, and we will all prosper.
Be comfortable with being uncomfortable, and I can't really say too much after that. I mean, this stuff is hard, but I think to commiserate with entrepreneurs, I haven't yet to find a serious entrepreneur or business person who just wasn't cool or nice or just inspirational with what they're doing. Like people who are really legitimately doing this thing, pushing it, whether or not they're a CEO of a major company or an entrepreneur just starting a business. I encourage people to do this, but just keep pushing. Don't give up. It's going to be hard.
Remember, perseverance is the key. A no isn't a no to you personally. It's a no meaning there's just more work to be done, right? So never stop because you hear a no. It just means there's just a few more steps you have left to go. And then ask why you got the no and how you can get to a yes, right? Also, if you're creating a technology product-focused company, apply to the TEDCO Harbor Bank Minority Business Pre-Seed Fund. Next application deadline is January 12th. We just had one that ended recently, so please apply. If you've applied in the past and gotten a no, please apply again. We can only pick so many. Next year, we're going to pick hopefully double the amount. So just because you got a no, it just might be not right now, right? And don't let the roadblock stop you. Like, it's real easy to get hung up and get down and get depressed and want to stop. Like Winston said, he got that first no, he didn't want to get out of bed for 2 weeks. Like, that happens. Now when he gets a no, he's probably, it's another no. Keeps moving. Right? It happens because you're going to get a lot of them. But when you get those yeses, they're going to mean so much more, and they're just going to propel your company forward so much further. Shameless plug, follow Joshy's Soap Bars on Instagram. It's a 6-year-old soap business. 6-year-old entrepreneur, please support Joshy's Soap Bar. Okay, anybody else want the actual spelling? See me afterwards. Yes.
Yeah, I would just echo a lot of what has been said already, and I would say that you are the master of your fate. So everything that you need to succeed in your business is already inside of you. Whether you lack the right engineer to develop the product, all the hustle is already in you to go to the meetups and meet people that have the technical prowess that you need to get your business off the ground. If you lack, investor connections, all of the intelligence is already in you to go network and talk to the right people to meet the right investors and build your business. It's already in you. So just let that out. Don't let this moment die. If you are starting something, if you've got something already going, tomorrow when it goes, take another step forward. Don't lie on the couch and watch, the Ravens get beat again tomorrow. So, I'm just saying, it's been.
So I was with you all day until.
I love the Ravens, but it's been a tough season. So,
It has, and that hurt a little bit.
I don't know. We'll see. I'm not bullish on it right now.
All right, so I'd like to give a round of applause for our panelists.